Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Talking Tuesday edition of Palmetto Sports Daily. Rick Henry holding it down here in Columbia. Teagan Brown has things under control in Myrtle Beach. Kevin Bilodeau, he's the man down there in the port city of Charleston. And Carmine Jamay, oh yeah, he always ready for a good battle. Fist of Steel in Greenville. Hello, everyone. Well, on this Talking Tuesday, wow, I tell you, here in Gamecock Nation, in the Midlands, folks have been talking about what happened to South Carolina on Saturday, blowing that 30-3 halftime lead against Texas A&M, losing 31-30. When I was in church Sunday, it was hard for me to leave after the service because people wanted to happen about what happened to the Gamecocks. Okay, enough of that talk for now. Right now, the Gamecocks still have 2 games to play against Coastal this Saturday, and then they have their arch rival to wrap up the season. So I asked Shane Beamer today, with so much of their goals, so many of their goals basically off the table now, does he have to change his motivational talk to the guys, or does he have to find different ways to motivate them, different techniques, a different tone of voice? And here's what Shane had to say.
And also understanding, too, that we're all sick and we don't want to feel this feeling again. And I realized that 1 year ago, Rick, we were sitting here tonight getting ready to play Wofford, and we're all dialed into the playoff rankings to see where we're ranked. And we're not there right now, but I do know next year at this time we're going to be sitting here next year on this Tuesday night watching the playoff rankings to see where we are in the rankings show, and we're going to be firmly in the mix for a college football playoff berth next year at this time. And we're all sick about this feeling, but we're not going to go through this thing again, and we're going to go finish this season out the right way, send these guys out the right way, and then the minute that thing hits zero on the clock after the Thanksgiving Day game or Thanksgiving weekend game, we're full speed ahead on 2026.
Now, Shane and the 3 players we talked to, they talked about moving forward. The leaders on the team, they're talking about helping the younger guys out of the doldrums. And, hey, it's going to be senior day against Coastal. Let's send the seniors out in a good way with a victory. Because I'm telling you, if they can't shake it and they get off to a lousy start against Coastal, this one could go south and they could find themselves losing to Coastal. So, Teagan, I'm going to toss it to you. What's the mood down there among the Chanticleers?
Well, I think a lot has changed since the loss against Georgia Southern on the road this past weekend. At the time, the Chants had Samari Collier under center. They had finally found some consistency on both sides of the ball, but now it seems like Teal Nation is pretty nervous about the fact that Samari Collier will most likely be out this weekend after an injury in that Georgia Southern game. Tim Beck took some time yesterday to talk about his status, and it is not ideal.
Yeah, he looks like he'll be out. It's still early. We're waiting some, we did MRIs and x-rays and things of that on Sunday when we came back late. Or early Sunday morning when the players come in. So we're still waiting on it, but he just doesn't. I'm guessing, speculating, he doesn't look good.
Yeah, so definitely not ideal for Coastal Carolina fans. Now, in that Georgia Southern game, after Samari went out, Tad Hudson was put under center, which I think was a little bit of a surprise because they also had MJ Morris, who got some time a couple weeks ago in the App State game when Samari went out in that one with an injury for not too long within that one. But, Coastal just lost their consistency completely in this last game. The defense could not stop the run, so if South Carolina, figures out that weakness and watches that Georgia Southern game, that looks like something that they might do over and over again. And if this Coastal defense has not adapted during this week, Rick, totally not ideal for Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, Gamecocks, 23.5-point favorite. If they play like they did in the first half against Texas A&M, then Coastal has no chance. If the Gamecocks revert to their bad habits like we saw in the second half against Texas A&M, I think it probably doesn't matter who Coastal has at quarterback. They'll be able to give them a fight and make the Gamecocks sweat. Kevin?
Rick, I wanted to ask you, do you get a sense that we're going to see any of the younger guys over these next 2 weeks? Did Shane Beamer say anything about that today? Because especially at the quarterback position, we don't know what Lenore Sellers is set to do after this season. He's been still talked about, despite having a rough year on the field, still talked about being a first-round pick in the NFL draft. So I'm wondering if we got to start looking towards next year at all. I mean, I know obviously the Clemson game is important, and every game is important when you talk to a head coach. But, if I'm a Carolina fan, I'd like to start seeing what we have to look forward to next year.
Well, Shane was kind of asked that question today because it is senior day and about honoring the seniors and how do you balance that, because you want to give the seniors some good playing time. But Shane quickly said, hey, I'm trying to win the game. Now, we saw some of the younger guys play a more prominent role against Texas A&M, like Jawan Howell, the transfer running back from South Carolina State. This is his second year with the Gamecocks. He was Carolina's leading rusher on Saturday, but he only rushed 3 times for like 30 yards, and then he kind of disappeared. So I'd like to see more from Howell. And then you have Lenore Sellers, younger brother, receiver. He's been seeing more playing time. So I'd like to see him and some of the other young receivers see a little more playing time. But I don't think he's going to go away from that too much as far as giving someone else some more quarterback playing time unless it's a blowout. Carmine?
Yeah, and Rick, I feel so bad for Shane Beamer just because of this extremely deflating loss. I mean, it would have been a nice feather in the cap, instead of going 0-5 in this stretch that we've talked about, the Gamecocks gauntlet that they've faced, 5 teams, all SEC and all ranked in the top 15 in the country. Would have been nice to have that huge win over the third-ranked team in the country, at Kyle Field for Texas A&M. I think he's getting unfairly criticized and really a lot of flack on social media for, pumping up the crowd at halftime, which was the Gamecocks section and different things like that. Was there any talk about his, dealing with the deflating nature of this loss? I know there's 2 more games left, but I mean, if there's any game that's tough to come back from, this was definitely one of them.
Yeah, well, a couple of times today he talked about, he said, we're all sick about the way the season has gone, how the Texas A&M game turned out. And he also mentioned social media. He's telling the guys stay off social media because there was a rumor going around that he and defensive coordinator Clayton White got into an altercation at practice and had to be separated. And before Shane came into the room where we hold the press conference, he kind of stood at the door, looked at us, grinned, and balled his fist up and punched the air. And Shane came in and even his wife was asking about it. And, he's getting a lot of text messages. So the word is just stay off social media because, you're not going to make yourself feel any better by checking out what everyone else has to say. Okay, that's going to wrap it up for the first segment of Palmetto Sports Daily. We're going to take a time out, and we'll be back with more on this Talkin Tuesday.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. Some more college football talk and some big picture college football talk because we have some huge in-state matchups, Coastal Carolina and South Carolina, and then we have Clemson hosting Furman on Saturday. But we also have this talk about the transfer portal, which always follows Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney around, his lack of using the transfer portal. Should he dip into the transfer portal more? Should we go back to the future and wish things, how they once were with college football? We're never going back. But we know that this upcoming season will be the first transfer portal that will have one transfer window, and now it will be between January 2nd and January 16th, which will be the day after the college football playoff quarterfinal is played. So it'll still be during a lot of those college football playoff games, now, of course, extending to 12 teams for the second season. So Dabo Swinney, very interesting. You never know what he's going to say, always interesting. And he was talking about a peek behind the curtain with this year's starting running back, Adam Randall, who's coming off 105 rushing yards and scoring the Tigers only 2 touchdowns in the top 20 win at Louisville, the only ranked win for Clemson this season. Talking about how Adam almost transferred and what Dabo thinks about the transfer portal as it stands right now.
Adam and I sat down, the day after the ACC championship game because he was going to go in the portal. Because, and he's a great kid. He loves Clemson. He's graduating. He's going to be a graduate and have his degree. And he's like, I just want to go play. And I said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we give the spring, and I want to move you to running back. What do you think about that? And he kind of looked at me. And I asked him, I said, what do you do best? He said, run with the ball. I said, well, exactly. So let's try the spring. I said, and if it doesn't go like I think it's going to go and we don't see what I think I'm going to see, I'll help you get somewhere in May. We shook on it, hugged it up, said, all right, let's go get ready for Texas. And that wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have happened. Because then he wouldn't have had that opportunity to go and compete and gain confidence and so forth. So, yeah, I think it would be better in a different time. They can still have the academic resources and they can finish a semester, and it gives them time to really think about where do they want to go? What's the best situation for them? Maybe see what happened at some of these schools' spring practice before they're forced to make a decision. And again, these kids are being, they have to make a decision with a fire hose, and I don't think that's a good situation.
Yeah, and it is a lot coming at these kids. We have to remember you're now 18 to, infinite years old if you still have eligibility, but usually early 20s. But this transfer portal window now, not having the late option, it is really interesting because these guys are going to be immediately after their seasons or sometimes still during their seasons, their one and only chance to try and transfer from that January 2nd to January 16th. And Dabo was saying also that it'll require instant decisions. Like that's what he's talking about with the fire hose. You won't have any time to really cool down coming off a season. Let's say if you didn't play a lot, and he went through this in his press conference, if you didn't play a lot, you might be emotionally filled and, I really want to play, and that kind of thing that Adam Randall mentioned. And because of the transfer portal window now being first week of January, you're going to have to make that decision quickly and maybe not have all the meetings with your coaches. They can tell you the vision of what's to come and maybe talk you off the ledge a little bit and continue having you stay at that school. But Teagan, what do you think as far as Coach Swinney's comments and the transfer portal window as it stands now?
Yeah, taking that time to think about your transfer is super important. As an example, I transferred schools in the middle of my sophomore year in college, and I had quite literally 2 weeks to decide if I was going to transfer to Syracuse. And I waited until the very last minute because I did all of those meetings with different professors at each school and with my family and everything. So on top of that, the athletic part and just trying to figure out where you're going to be the most successful, where you're going to get the most time off the bench, you need that time to think. I really like Dabo Swinney's approach to it with Adam Randall last season, of course, a Myrtle Beach High School alum. So, you were saying earlier, college football never going back to the way it was. I wish it could, but yeah, we are where we are. And that transfer portal is definitely a small period of time, Kevin.
Yeah, there's really no ideal time to do this that it's going to work out perfectly for everyone. You're either going to have not enough time coming off the season, or you're going to have too much time where you're just sitting there and stewing about what happened during the season, and you're going to make an emotional decision either way. They're kids, essentially, between 17 and 22 years old. They're still kids, so whatever decision they make is going to be an emotional one. The thing I don't like about the window the most is that the players should be held to the same standards as the coaches. If a coach can leave any time during the year, then a kid should be able to leave anytime during the year and take another job. A coach can take another job anytime he wants. At any point during the year, he could leave. He might not be on the sideline the very next week, but he can go and take another job with another school. So if that's what a coach can do and he gets paid millions of dollars, there's no reason a kid shouldn't be able to do the same thing, Rick.
Yeah, does it seem like this decision to have just this one transfer portal and to have it just in January, does it seem like it's benefiting the coaches more because now in December, they don't have to worry about the portal. They can concentrate on recruiting high school guys or concentrate on getting their team ready for bowls. And then the portal closes before most teams begin spring practice. So then you get the new guys in. They can practice during the spring, and then you've got the summer for more evaluation, you and your staff, to get things lined up for fall camp. So, yeah, I think it's still slanted heavily for the coaches.
Yeah, you're right, Rick, because what if the NCAA came down and made a rule where it was like, okay, coaches, you can't leave your current school for any time from, beginning of December until we're done with the season. Nobody can change schools. You have to stay there and sit and think about what you're going to do next. Nobody can do this. You have to worry about recruiting for the current school you're at. The coaches would lose their minds, so there's no reason the kids shouldn't be able to do the same thing and worry about their future. If it's too much work for the coaches, I'm not really worried about it. You guys are making a lot of money, so you can find a 17th assistant coach that can deal with recruiting some of these kids. All right, we've got more to talk about here on Palmetto Sports Daily coming up right after this.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. We have had a coaching carousel this season. Lots of changes in college football, but we do have the first major change now with somebody else going into a role that was cleared. We've got James Franklin heading to Virginia Tech. Of course, he was at Penn State before, and before him at Virginia Tech, it was Brent Pry. So just curious about your guys' thoughts on this move, if you think that Franklin will find any success there at Virginia Tech. Carmine?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, look at what he's built up, in the decade leading Penn State and, building him into a national power. I know he hasn't won the big one, as everybody always says, and, in a very competitive Big Ten with those top-tier talented teams, but going all the way to the college football playoff semifinals last season and celebrating several wins, not as big as Penn State wanted, obviously, and then the 3 losses in a row that were devastating this season, leading to his firing. But how about the ACC, back-to-back years with major coaching hires? Bill Belichick, of course, bringing his 6 Super Bowls as a head coach, 2 as an assistant to UNC Chapel Hill, and now Virginia Tech adding James Franklin, another legend. Dabo Swinney commenting on this new addition to the ACC.
He's a winner. He's a winner. He's won everywhere he's been. He's a good football coach. I've known James for a long time. I have a good relationship with him. Certainly be great for our league. And I think it's a great fit. Similar recruiting footprint as far as what he's been a part of for a long time. But he's a winner. I know people, he hadn't won the championship. He was a play away last year from being in the national championship, but he's a proven football coach, and I think they made a great hire. I think he'll do a great job. Again, great for the league, great for Virginia Tech, and good for the kids that he'll have opportunity to coach.
And Rick trying to return Virginia Tech back to the days of Shane Beamer's dad, Frank Beamer, when they were winning all those conference championships. Of course, Michael Vick back there at quarterback. But your thoughts on the hire of the big man, James Franklin from Penn State, going to Virginia Tech in the ACC?
Well, James Franklin did a great job when he was at Vanderbilt, made them respectable, but he realized while he was there he could only take the Commodores so far. So he goes to Penn State. He won a lot of games, but, hey, Penn State folks, they want to win national championships. He wasn't able to do that, and his record against top 5, top 10 teams, not that great. I think he will have a better tenure at Virginia Tech. Right now, the ACC is down, Clemson is down, Miami, Florida State. So he can come in there and make the Hokies a contender probably pretty quickly with the portal and NIL money. So I expect him to have the Hokies in the hunt for ACC championships pretty quickly. Kevin?
Yeah, and of course, the big domino we're all waiting for in this coaching search is Lane Kiffin over at Ole Miss. He was on Pat McAfee's show earlier this afternoon, said that rumors that he has been given a deadline by Ole Miss to make a decision on if he's going to stay or go were not true. The rumor was that he had to make a decision before the Egg Bowl next week. He says that is not the case, although he did reportedly have interviews at Florida, at LSU over the weekend. So it feels like all these big openings we have right now, which is LSU, Florida, Penn State, Arkansas, we're all just waiting to see what Lane Kiffin's going to do, and then the dominoes are going to fall after that. But you mentioned, Rick, the Penn State fans being excited about getting rid of Franklin. I wonder if a month later now, if they're not rethinking that, because you kind of look around and Kurt Cignetti's staying in Indiana, Matt Rule is staying in Nebraska. That seemed like their two big selling points right there to go after those guys. And now, Kiffin's making his decision between these three other schools. I wonder if they wouldn't go back and say, maybe the guaranteed 9-10 wins we were getting every year with James Franklin was okay. And, Kiffin is, like I said, it's really the big domino right now. And everything else just kind of held up until he makes a decision going forward. We've got more to talk about here on Palmetto Sports Daily. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. We talked about a lot of football from this past weekend, but wanted to show you some wrestling we had here in the Low Country over on the USS Yorktown, the second annual Throwdown on the Yorktown wrestling event. Huge wrestling meet for NCAA teams that included the Citadel, who lost both of their meets to Air Force and Maryland on the Throwdown at the Yorktown #2. That, like I said, the second time, and just amazing visuals from here on the Yorktown. Last year, when they first brought this event to the Yorktown, they held it at dusk, which had weather problems because the condensation started getting on the mats. Things got a little bit too slippery, so they weren't able to finish. This year, they started at 10 in the morning, had fans on the mats the entire time, so they were able to get everything done. Just a fantastic event. Looking forward to doing this every year. Like I said before, they've had basketball games, home run derbies, but the wrestling was really the way to go over on the Yorktown this past weekend. That's going to do it for today's Palmetto Sports Daily. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Everyone have a great night.